Familiar theater tradition that I'm interested in researching is an English tradition named Punch and Judy puppets. The Punch and Judy show is a symbol of English puppetry theater. It's a traditional glove puppet show featuring Mr. Punch and his wife Judy. According to a history of Punch and Judy, the Punch and Judy show originates from traditional medieval Italian comedy theater. Punch and Judy shows began to emerge in the United Kingdom during the Restoration period in the 1660s. They're often short, at around 10 minutes long. In order to entertain pedestrians, the show uses exaggerated violence to grab the audience's laughs and attention. According to Highslop, Punch and Judy is a classic example of slapstick comedy. Slapstick comedies, like Punch and Judy, entertain the audience by using intentional violence and violence by mishap. It involves extremely exaggerated physical activity that goes beyond what is commonly recognized as normal physical comedy. The show comprises of a sequence of short scenes, each featuring Mr. Punch and another character who likely will fall victim to Mr. Punch's slapstick. When Mr. Punch hits the victim with his slapstick, it makes an extremely loud noise, which surprises and entertains the audience. According to Victoria and Albert Museum, the show has a generally expected plot, with Mr. Punch getting into heated arguments with other characters, then physically attacking the other character using his slapstick. The show ends with his classic line, "That's the way to do it," and his clacking laugh. This clip shows a classic scene from a Punch and Judy show. As shown in this clip, Mr. Punch hits the policeman on the head with his stick and makes fun of him by cackling "That's the way to do it" after the policeman has been defeated. The characters are constantly in motion, which builds up to the moment of violence and to laughter. According to Myth and More, Punch and Judy shows are conventionally performed at an outdoor setting like festivals and parties. The audience gathers around a relatively small booth to watch a performance. As referenced in A History of Punch and Judy, the show is performed by a single puppeteer known as a professor or punchman inside a booth. The punchman hides underneath the booth while holding the puppets in the visible top section. The punchman directs the puppets to rise from the bottom of the booth to the stage in front of a static visible backdrop, as seen in this picture by Groundhauser. Punch and Judy puppets are made to be hand marionettes instead of string ones for better control. The boggler here assists the punchman throughout the show by interacting with the audience outside the booth. The boggler also sometimes plays accompanying music on a drum, guitar, or a fiddle in the 21st century. Audience members are encouraged to participate in Punch and Judy shows, and in the show, the audience often calls out the unknown dangers to the puppet performing on the stage. This clip accurately shows a time when the audience reacts to action on the stage. The convention I decided to pick for Punch and Judy shows is the use of the Swazzle to change the vocal qualities of Mr. Punch. According to Worldwide Words, while having many forms, the Swazzle is a device made from two bowed metal strips bound across a cotton tape reed. Tape is installed across the middle for additional sound effects. The punchman soaks the Swazzle in water or saliva before using it in the show. Then the performer positions the Swazzle between their tongue and the roof of their mouth. Thus, exhaled air can pass between the two metal strips, creating a raspy, squawky, and kazoo-like sound. Mr. Punch speaks with extremely distinctive voice. According to the Harriet Daily News, because of the use of the Swazzle, he speaks with a high, squawky, and raspy voice. In addition, when he delivers a crucial line or uses his slapstick, he emits ear-splitting cries and high-pitched noises. In addition to being distinct and identifiable, Punch's voice can also convey emotions without words. Because the Swazzle generates such a syllabic voice, Punch's lines focus on conveying emotions over information. Essentially, the performer will try to convey meaning without exact words or lines. For example, when Punch's voice is low and slow, the audience can perceive sadness. However, when Punch's voice is high and fast, the audience can perceive joy and excitement. According to Atlas Obscura, the punchman holds the Swazzle in their mouth and blows air into it in order to produce the sound, as you can see here. Because of the velocity of air moving through it is so high, it can emit very loud and high-pitched noises, which is essential for the audience to hear Mr. Punch in an outdoor and noisy setting. Because other characters do not use the Swazzle, Mr. Punch's voice is extremely recognizable and memorable. Here's a video of a punchman demonstrating Punch's voice with a Swazzle.
And then I blow air over the top of my tongue, and that's how we get Mr. Punch's way.
As you can see from this video, tongue movements can allow the punchman to move the Swazzle in and out of position. Therefore, air can be controlled to push through and pass the Swazzle, leading to the punchman being able to switch voice types very quickly. However, such movements can lead to risks in using this instrument. Performers have often been found swallowing Swazzles by accident. Instead of the Swazzle, I chose to use a kazoo as a replacement instrument. The reason I used a kazoo instead of a Swazzle is that I could not purchase a Swazzle in my region. The kazoo, however, is a solid substitute to the Swazzle as it produces a highly similar sound quality to it. The only visible difference is that the swazzle is placed inside the mouth, while the kazoo is held by one hand and the lips. I tried to create the voice of punch through my kazoo without any practice. However, I did not produce any sound on my kazoo because I never learned how to use it, as shown in this video. Thus, I committed to 3 steps for my practical exploration of creating the voice of Mr. Punch. I learned to use the kazoo, practice talking using the kazoo, and practice altering pitches. My first step was to learn to use the kazoo. I learned to play the kazoo by watching a YouTube video titled How to Play the Kazoo Like a Pro by the Kazoo Guru. I realized that I originally started my exploration by blowing air into the kazoo, which was an incorrect way of playing the instrument. The video instructed me to hum and sing into the kazoo, which causes the film on top to vibrate and to let me to produce a loud, raspy sound successfully, as shown in this video. After learning the kazoo, I can produce a simple sound that is similar to Punch's voice quality, and it empowers me to progress into more complex factors that make up the voice of Punch. Next, I decided to practice talking in different pitches. As mentioned in the previous section, Punch's voice mainly carries emotions over content, as it is hard for the audience to hear Punch clearly. Thus, I have to master talking in the voice using different pitches. I found talking in a low voice to be rather simple, as I can just speak into the kazoos using my chest voice and my natural pitch. However, I cannot talk in a high-pitched voice because Punch speaks using my natural range. Managing to speak in a high-pitched voice involves me using a singing technique called falsetto. According to Elizabeth Davis, falsetto alters the position of the vocal cords so that the air passing through will only go through the thinner edges of my cords, thus producing a higher pitched sound. I have a very low natural voice, which means that I need to use falsetto to achieve the same pitch as Punch when he laughs. After days of practicing falsetto, I got better at talking in falsetto. I learned how to position my vocal cords so that I can produce a high-pitched, more airy sound. I then incorporated the technique of falsetto into the kazoo, as shown in this video. I first produced a pitch using my chest voice, then a pitch using falsetto. Lastly, I decided to practice talking using the kazoo. As I have to hold the kazoo in my mouth, I cannot pronounce words extremely clearly. I thought that this was an error on my end, but after referring to multiple performance videos, I realized that it's rather difficult to pronounce words clearly, as shown in this video. In this video, the Punchman tried to pronounce the phrase "how'd you do," but he could not pronounce it perfectly either. I realized that I essentially have my mouth open when I'm holding the kazoo. Thus, it will be very hard for me to pronounce phonetic sounds that require the lips to close or the tongue to push forward. For example, I cannot produce the B sound clearly as the lips come in contact, and I cannot produce the TH sound as the tongue moves forward. However, after watching several shows, I developed a set of techniques that enables me to pronounce words more clearly. For example, I can simplify the P and B sounds to a D sound. Thus, my lips don't come in contact and my tongue only moves up and down instead of forward, which leads to me producing a clearer sound through substitution. As shown in this video, I can now deliver a high-pitched and clear voice of Punch after knowing all 3 steps of the kazoo. I chose to incorporate the high-pitched, cackling voice of Mr. Punch into the traditional voice material of a classic Punch and Judy street show. I found a practice script on the website Punch and Judy on the web. In this specific moment of theater, the policeman comes to arrest Punch, who then makes a comedic moment out of it by misinterpreting what the policeman says. Then, the two get into a heated fight and Punch gets pinned down by the policeman. Initially, I performed the script and altered between the voice of the policeman and the voice of Punch using the kazoo. I kept the voice of Punch high while the voice of the policeman low for better distinction. I will give you an example. No, I don't want arrest. I have an order to take you in. Here, the audience can clearly distinguish between Punch's high voice using the kazoo and the policeman's low voice. However, I realized that my performance still lacked emotional development in Punch's character. I realized that this is because I've been performing Punch using the same high-pitched and excited voice throughout, which makes the character very flat. I decided to try to incorporate more emotions through altering Punch's pitch. Using the kazoo, I'll try to use different voices and different pitches to deliver 2 emotions, excitement and disappointment. When Punch is making jokes with the policeman, he is excited, which leads to him producing a higher-pitched sound. However, when Punch gets pinned down by the policeman, he feels defeated, which leads to him producing a lower-pitched sound. For example, no, I don't want arrest. I have an order to take you in. Punch and policeman fight. Policeman wins and pins Punch to the wall. As shown in this exploration, I tried to change Punch's pitch as well as the piece progresses, while develop depth for the character. The audience can clearly see how Punch feels towards certain events. Essentially, it gave Punch more human-like emotions through changing my pitch. Through the explorations with Punch and Judy puppets, and specifically Punch's voice, I made major improvements in both my pitch and tone. First and foremost, I developed my vocal range as an actor through exploration. Falsetto empowered me to speak in a much higher pitch compared to my natural range without putting a lot of strain on my vocal cords. Moreover, practicing talking in the voice of Mr. Punch provided me with the new vocal tone of a cackling and raspy voice. This enables me to portray a variety of new characters in the future. I am also motivated and driven to include different and distinctive vocal qualities in future performances. These new vocal qualities can empower me to impersonate different characters with different sets of emotions and personalities. In addition, because I learned how to switch between two voice types quickly, it will be possible for me to perform shows that require a performer to simultaneously portray two characters at the same time, such as puppet shows or some specific dramatic monologues. In my previous years as a theater student, I performed a dramatic monologue where I had to portray two different inner voices. One was meant to be a calm and collected figure, while the other was meant to be a devilish voice. The calm figure spoke at a slow pace and a deep voice, while the devil spoke in a squawky and cackling voice, just like Punch. I struggled with expressing the character of the devil at the time due to my lack of vocal development. However, if I were to perform this now, I would be able to use a much larger vocal range and different and altering qualities to present the two contrasting characters with ease. In addition, Punch's voice also taught me how changes in the voice can hugely affect the audience. The audience essentially feels the emotions Punch is trying to convey through changes in its tone. The audience feels excited when Punch screams with excitement, and the audience feels pity when Punch groans in pain. In fact, the indistinctiveness nature of Punch's voice made me understand how sometimes emotions and audience engagement does not need to be based on lines. One can perfectly convey meaning through theater without any words and just shifts in tone and different sound and voice qualities. Thus, moving forward, I will try to be putting more attention to the emotional development of my characters and their feelings. For example, for my solo piece, I would consider writing more scenes where I exaggerate my voice for comedic effect and gesture the audience to participate in my solo. In addition, for my upcoming collaborative project, I can try to create more dramatically two-sided characters. Through multi-role play and quick changes in my voice, I am empowered to create more drastic contrast between characters. Through Punch and Judy, I am more skillful in conveying meanings and emotions through the voice. Not only did the convention of Punch's voice help me grow as a performer, but it also made me form a deeper understanding about world theater. Previously, I understood theater to be a mirror to reality. Just like Meisner said, acting is living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. I watched many theater pieces where the actors all feel like real people that I would meet in my real life, and I felt drawn into the detailed and realistic story the playwright constructed. I understood theater's purpose to be trying to draw audience members into the story through realistic mirrors of nature and life. However, after studying the art of Punch and Judy puppets, I realized that theater can also draw the audience in through the completely opposite of realism. Punch and Judy contains movement and speech that are highly different from everyday actions. By exaggerating all of Punch's actions and speech, the tradition do not have the intent to create realistic scenes. Instead, Punch uses dramatic character and language to appeal to the audience. Through slapsticks and squawky voices, Punch and Judy shows interact with and entertain the audience. Although the action does not mirror reality and seems to be extremely unrealistic per se, the audience understands the meaning and finds humor in the uniqueness of it. Punch and Judy show's dramatic and comedic nature changed theater's purpose from drawing realistic connections to making the audience laugh through unrealistic stage action. Both realism and Punch and Judy show's unrealistic dramatic portrayal all have one thing in common. They want audience attention and they want audience engagement. In addition, the tradition of Punch and Judy and the convention of Punch's voice have made me realize that different sounds without any spoken words can convey meaning that holds value to the audience in a theater performance. Therefore, after researching other pieces that have unique ways of line delivery, I realized that I can draw parallels between Punch and Judy's voice choices and the concept of using gibberish in improvisational theater pieces. According to Boyk, gibberish is an improvised language that consists of a strand of meaningless and made-up words and phrases. It is commonly used in improvisational theater pieces and exercises where the actor prioritizes body language, specifically mimicry and gestures. In German theater maker Franz Hohler's performance, Das Tote Legally, he spoke gibberish throughout the entire performance. I couldn't understand anything he said throughout the entire thing, but I still feel the actor's emotions through his inflections and voice qualities. For example, upwards inflections tend to convey surprise, excitement, or shock, while downwards inflections tend to convey melancholy and seriousness. Different voice qualities can yield different character presentations too. Raspier voices tend to make the audience feel like the performer is older, and a clearer and higher voice can yield a more protagonistic and positive character.
To conclude, after researching and exploring Punch and Judy, I realized that many theater traditions have utilized or even prioritized dramatic movement and vocal qualities over realistic line delivery in order to highlight the emotions of the performer.